Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
And welcome to the Monday live stream here on Monday, August 9th. I am Alex Kozora. As always, joined by me is Dave Bryan. I can't even talk today. It's been a really hot day at training camp practice, but we're happy to be back with you guys. Just a half hour today. Apologize for that, but Dave and I just wrapped up the special edition of the Terrible Podcast, recapping day 9 of practice. Still wanted to do this on Monday, so wanted to talk to you guys now for just a half hour, but we'll get to as many camp questions as possible. Dave, how you doing? And if the chat can let me know if you can hear Dave's voice. You should be able to, but if you can't, please let me know.
Happy Monday. Check. Everybody doing okay? Hello. Thanks for coming.
All right, so let me know if you could hear that. If not, I'll make one quick setting change, and then we will be good to start again. Answering your Steelers questions. I know the time frame has been shorter today, so if you want to have your question be guaranteed to be asked and answered, send us a super chat if you would like. Certainly no obligation to do so. So again, let us know on Dave, and then I will kind of start things off here with the first question, which comes from Liv Loyal, who says, Alex, who's impressing you the most so far at training camp? Is anyone underperforming in your opinion? And you guys can't hear Dave, so that is good news. That's a really good question. It's a really big question, Liv Loyal. It's hard for me to come up with one name who stands out above the rest. A guy like today, like Cassius Marsh, I thought had a really good practice. He's someone that I know and I think a lot of Steelers fans kind of wrote off, and certainly I would not advise him to be the number 3 outside linebacker on this team, but I think he could have a really good role as a number 4 special teamer kind of guy and just having a nice camp overall. In terms of who's underwhelming, I don't know if there's one name who's really significantly underwhelming me. Obviously, some of the Dawson stuff and his lack of work and the lack of, reps as a starting 5 has been a source of frustration for me. So that's maybe less underwhelming and more just kind of frustration, impatience on my part. I don't know if there's one player who's been really poor. I think a core force taking his lumps, but he's also just coming back from the little injury that he suffered. So I think we'll still kind of let this thing play out this summer. Next question here comes from Mike Adesso. Alex, I'm curious with your time at live practices, anything in particular with the coaching staff or any critiques stick out? Yeah, you mentioned in your follow-up about Terrell Austin and the ball mentality, and I think that's one thing he certainly brought to this team. Turnover circuit drills every single day. Every single drill almost involves a football catching at the end of a rep or, punching the ball out and stuff like that. And similarly, Eddie Faulkner, the running backs coach, has really practice and preach ball security. They have really different drills almost every single day for not just running backs, but tight ends and skill position players, wide receivers, to focus on taking care of the football and really testing that and making sure that no one's fumbling the football away. And so I think those little detail things have impressed me. And I think someone like Carl Dunbar is a really good defensive line coach that has really kind of taken the mantle and stepped in the shoes of John Mitchell, which were huge shoes to fill. Dave, I know you're not there, but just kind of your sense of things in this coaching staff, any kind of additional insight on just some of these coaches that we talk about occasionally?
No, you just hear that Grady working with some of the DBs and some of the things, pre-practice and all like that. Look, I mean, this is an experienced coaching staff overall, and I think I think one thing that really stuck out to me just in the preseason game the other day, we talked about, going back through and watching the offensive line again and trying to pay more attention to that. I mean, for the 11 guys or 12 guys that actually played in that game offensive line wise, I thought they represented themselves well. So I think that's a good first impression of Adrian Clem and the job that him and Chris Morgan are doing with that offensive line so far. We'll see what happens when we start getting the starters in there right now. But I would think just the biggest thing is just seeing, obviously I'm not there. I don't see what's happening out there at training camp, but just, the finished product, or at least the game day product so far, especially when it comes to the offensive line, has looked okay.
That's a really good point, and they maximize their time well in O-line individual sessions. Morgan's taking half the group, Clem's taking the other half, so they're getting double the reps with such a big amount of guys, 15 plus. So good question there, Mike. Nicholas McKay, and I'll throw this question to you to start. He says, I'll go ahead and ask the quarterback question. I watched the Hall of Fame game, and personally, I saw nothing from any of the guys that would shake the depth chart, as is, what do you guys think? Has the depth chart changed in your mind at all from pre-Hall of Fame game to post-Hall of Fame game, Dave?
No, no, it hasn't. And I think it's easy to get caught up, and people have already picked sides of which way most people have already picked sides of which way they want this to go, and anything contrary against their narrative, they will dismiss, and anything that fits their narrative they'll go with. I think you and I have learned over time here that play by play on training camp is great, and your diaries, nothing touches it, but this is a 3 week 4 week process here,
Hmm.
and you take in this little bit of information here, and then you watch the tape, and you'll watch the game. But from what I've seen so far, and reading your reports, and what I obviously looking at the one preseason game, I don't think anything's shifted right now. Now, do I think there's obviously room for somebody to make a move on somebody, whether it be Dobbs over the other two? I mean, I think it's far fetched to think Dobbs is going to win the second, the number two spot. But I think Mike Tomlin has done a good job of saying, look, Dobbs is still in this race as well too. So no, I don't think there has been any separation or any change of what the depth chart is right now. I think it's Ben. I think it's Mason. I think it's Haskins because they want to get a good look at
Hmm.
Haskins. And then I think it's Dobbs. And we'll see what happens against the Eagles this next game. And somebody can ask us again to chime in on this.
I agree with you. Unchanged is my answer, Nicholas. Duck Swagger, Alex and Dave, hope you're well. How did Dan Moore and Kendrick Green look in the Hall of Fame game? I think they both looked well. They both looked athletic. They moved well in space. Green snaps were solid. There weren't any major mental issues that I could tell. I thought Moore had a really good rep in stunt pickup, and neither of them embarrassed themselves in that tough situation in your first NFL game. And they both moved well, and again, things they can work on for sure. But I think they just, were consistent and displayed some of that athletic ability that got them drafted.
Yeah, I think and we've said this right, or at least I did right from the start there. Kendrick Green had a low bar to clear in the first place there, and if he didn't clear it, I figured something has gone wrong if he doesn't clear that bar and becomes your week one starting center. I think everything that we've seen so far, at least Alex at practice, and then what we saw against the Cowboys in the Hall of Fame game, I mean, look fine. I thought more. I thought once again, I sound like a broken record here, but I think the 11 or 12 guys that played against the Cowboys represented themselves well overall in that game. I haven't gone deep down into Moore's individual snaps yet. But just from the surface view, once again, I thought he played well, and I thought Kendrick Green can move out in space.
For sure.
That's one thing that really stuck out in that game.
Nathan Anderson, anyway, Dan Moore beats out Chooks. I don't think so. I mean, again, neither have been perfect, and Moore did get a ton of reps here, but I still fully expect a core four to be the starting left tackle when they travel to Buffalo week one.
I will be shocked, barring injury, if a core four is not the week one left tackle.
Right. Now, how well a core four plays and what's his future in Pittsburgh, I think are separate questions, but for the here and now for week one, I think a core four is the guy. Chris Balak, Alex, do you think Dobbs has a chance of making the final roster? Can we keep four quarterbacks this year? I don't think they're going to keep four in the 53. Can Dobbs make it? I mean, yes is the answer to that. But if you're Dobbs, you're just sitting there saying, what more do I have to do to prove myself? I played well at my opportunities. I barely get any reps. I led the only touchdown drive of the entire Hall of Fame game in terms of a passing touchdown. What more do I have to do to make it? And it just kind of feels like he's in an impossible situation to really have an opportunity to jump some of those guys. Next question here from the last Stylebender. Good to hear from you. Will Roche or Jameer, that's Jameer Jones, make the roster over Marsh if they bring something on special teams? Well, they're going to have to jump Marsh because he is a good special teams player overall and having a good camp. So I don't know if they would make it over Marsh. Maybe you would keep a fifth outside linebacker instead and only keep four inside and cut someone like UG3 or someone like that. But if they're going to do that and just make the roster in general, forget about who they're jumping, they're going to have to play well on special teams.
Absolutely, and Keith Butler said as much the other day there, and it all depends on if you. At this point, you could maybe question a couple of weeks ago when camp started. Man, it's Marsh, especially after they brought signed Ingram and all like that. You can maybe question, boy, maybe there's a chance that Marsh doesn't make this thing. But I think based on what Alex has reported so far, and based on what we saw in the preseason game the other night and all, and just the sheer fact that Marsh's calling card at this point, the thing that's kept a foot in the NFL for the most part, is the fact that he is a good special teamer. So, to me, a guy like Roche or Jameer Jones, for them to make the roster, barring no injuries happen, they would have to be phenomenal on special teams. And then that's it. That's the story. And you'd probably have to keep 5 outside linebackers in order to get there.
John Smith with a similar question. Alex, even if Marsh is doing better than Roche on special teams, you have to keep Roche as the number 4, right? Give him time to develop instead of Marsh, who's already at his ceiling. I understand that point, but no, I don't think you would have to give it to the guy who hasn't earned the battle. And I understand the idea of long-term stuff and upside, things like that. I still think Roche would make it to the practice squad unless he just has an absurdly good preseason the next 3 games. And most people will say he'll get poached. We say that about a lot of guys who ultimately go through waivers unclaimed. But if Marsh is better, Marsh is better. And I don't know that the upside is so high with Roche that you sit there and say you can't let this guy get away. I think it's been fine for him. We had that really nice sack on that dip and rip against the Cowboys, but it's not like it's so overwhelmingly good where you're just like, man, we cannot let this guy go.
Right, 53-man rosters across the league are short.
Right.
And every year it seems we go through this. People say you can't waive him. He's going to get poached and all like that. And 98 times out of 100, those guys clear waivers or whatnot. And unless Roche really sticks out, and even Keith Butler said the other day, Roche's got was mostly really been a defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got some things to learn about basically playing the outside linebacker position in the front that they play in Pittsburgh there. So that and the fact that he has, I mean, he has to get on that horse making some big special teams plays here to really get in those. Because if any team is going to were to claim him to their 53-man roster, it would be because they probably need some special teams help. And unless he shows that, then he's not going to be marketable at that point. So look, I mean, I'm rooting for that kid. I think both him and Jameer Jones have got some nice upside, at least from what we saw the other night there, and from what Alex seems to be reporting so far. But I mean, you got to keep the guy that helps your extra phase. And Alex and I say this every year, and people get mad at us. That's why we keep predicting that the Dirty Reds and the Anthony Chicklos make the roster because of special teams play, and they usually make the roster because of special teams play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I think that's going to be the case once again with a guy like Cassius Marsh.
And Roche is a 3-4 outside linebacker. He's too small in the NFL to play 4-3 end. So in terms of potential teams who could claim him, you eliminate about half the league right there because they're not going to take a 4-3 or a 3-4 guy try to fit him in a 4-3, even if the idea is special teams to begin his career. And so I think your odds of getting him through waivers is fairly high at this point. Nathan asked about Ben's Depot. It looks fine. I mean, it's we'll see how the regular season goes. We'll see how things look in week 12 compared to early August, but it looks fine right now. Mike's asking you, Dave, about how do you watch preseason games while out of state? He says he has direct TV for regular season and some other streams for preseason. If you're allowed to say it without getting our channel banned, how do you watch preseason out of state?
I mean, NFL Game Pass.
Okay. How are you doing that this year? You're still able to do it with maybe we shouldn't broach that topic. I don't know.
Well,
But,
we don't know yet, and we haven't gotten there yet. But I'm assuming that I'll be able to get that through Game Pass on Thursday night there. And if
okay.
not, I will get it internationally.
Okay, there you go. Mario's asked a good question here. Is Ben asked to operate the same offense, boots, half boots, as the younger, more athletic quarterbacks in camp? That's a really good question, Mario. He has been doing it, not at the frequency I don't think as the other guys, but of course he's just gotten less reps than a Dwayne Haskins or Mason Rudolph who practice in full every single day. So Short answer, yes, and I think he can do it because it is just kind of a half roll. The question's going to be because oftentimes on those boots there's a free rusher coming in if they don't get suckered in by the jet action or the play fake or something like that. So will he have the mobility to get away in those pressure situations? Obviously, probably not, and so that's where it could hurt him. But I think he's able to do it in itself. But the pressure that's going to come off that occasionally, the consequence to it, is going to be interesting to see how that works in this offense. Duck Swagger, if Haskins has an average preseason and Dobbs has a good preseason, will they still keep Haskins anyway? Yes, I think they still will keep Haskins. Not going to guarantee it, but I think they will.
Yeah, I think Haskins would really have to be bad. I mean,
Yeah.
really, really bad, and really he'd have to. I think the off the field things would have to get him.
Mm.
More than anything, I think they're willing to at least, as long as he keeps his nose clean, I think they're willing to try to work with him a little bit because just because they know what they have in Dobbs at this point, and probably Dobbs will probably be there for them if they need him should they get to that point on top of it there. So I would suspect as long as Dobbs doesn't ruin the chance here in the next several weeks, I would think they'd probably keep him. I mean,
Wes,
Haskins
right.
instead, over Dobbs.
Wes is asking, what are the odds that Jameer Jones makes the roster on a scale of 0 to 100%? Jameer Jones has been one of those really pleasant surprises of camp. In both camp and preseason action, he's shown more power. He's played well overall. He's been available. He's been consistent. But the odds of making the 53, I think, are still pretty low. I mean, is he going to have a ton of value on special teams? He can play there. But is he going to be a dominant guy that you have to keep? So, I mean, under 5% is the answer I would give you, Wes.
Yeah, barring injury, Wes. That's where I'm at as well too. And look, I know a lot of y'all hate hearing that kind of stuff. I get it. I mean, you see these young kids, and you hope that maybe you have something that you can develop for next to nothing. And yeah, those guys showed out good on the defensive side of football in preseason one. They probably will can continue to as well too. But special teams, man, when you look at that top three that this team has right now at the edge position, and then you throw in a guy like Cassius Marsh, who's been around the block a few times there, and plus, hey, he's a good special teams player. Barring injury, it makes that depth chart hard to hard to crack there. And then you keep in mind that Steelers normally do kind of an even split, 25-25 offense and defense, and then the three specialists. Is just not. There's just no room. So it would really have to be a special team situation where Danny Smith says, I've got to have Jameer Jones because of special teams. And if it doesn't get to that, and once again, you got to keep saying injury, as long as injury doesn't happen there, it makes it hard to give a guy like Jameer Jones a chance at making his 53. Now practice squad, I think you could end up possibly seeing Roche and Jameer Jones on the practice squad, quite
Yeah,
possibly.
I do too, and that was in my roster prediction today. Hello, Steeler fan 1933 and Steeler Nation highlights. Appreciate you guys being here. Yeah, last second stream decision. I just did tomorrow would be the same issue with the schedule with camp tomorrow and then Wednesday. I didn't want to do it Wednesday, so I thought we could kind of squeeze things in today. So appreciate you guys being here.
He's trying to
Panel
kill
last
me.
second.
Help! Call 911.
Oh, you're fine. Lumberzak 94. Hey, Alex, how was Kevin Dotson looking today? If you were there, we were there. I know he was with the second team, but first impressions, I suppose. It is tough to gauge offensive line play in team drills like that because there are so many bodies flying around, and he did not participate in O-line, D-line one-on-one. But he looked okay. I didn't see any issues, but it is tough to watch at first glance. So we'll try to look at it tomorrow as well. But I didn't see anything glaringly good or bad with Dotson today. But he is running full, as in he was running all the team sessions as the second team left guard.
I think the biggest question now is what happens Thursday night against the Eagles. Or will Trey Turner play? And if Trey Turner doesn't play, might we see Coward at right guard and Dotson get the start at left guard?
Right.
I wouldn't be shocked if that happened.
Yeah, I think it's possible. Steeler Nation highlights. What are your thoughts on the current inside linebacker room? Good, average. I feel like there's been mixed reports out of camp so far from Bush, Spillane, Johnson, etc. Yeah, mixed is the word I would probably use, and just still trying to figure it out. Remember, it is a young room overall. Devin Bush in his third year missed, more than a half of last season. UG3, third-year guy, but has missed large chunks of his first two seasons. Marcus Allen's second full season. as an inside linebacker. Buddy Johnson, of course, a rookie. So definitely seen some good, seen some bad from those guys. I think they need to get reps, and so the only way to get some of those young athletic guys to get better is to allow them to take a lot of reps and to make mistakes and get better. So it has been mixed. I think it's probably a good word to use overall, and hopefully they'll continue to kind of trend in the right direction over time, but it won't happen all at once. Next question here comes from Frank. If Dotson hasn't earned first team reps in the next 2 weeks, any chance you think we trade, sign another guard, or even tackle? I don't anticipate that. Well, a guard, not to start, because who are you going to get to start? Could you look for some depth there? Maybe. I'm leaning towards no, though. We'll have to see who's available, but they're not going to look for a starter,
Nah.
right before the season starts, Frank.
I would be shocked. It'd take a couple injuries at this point to happen. I think to get any kind of notable people in here.
Dave, the Steelers did not release a depth chart today, right? That they did not do that.
No, they did. They did.
They did. Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it the same as the first one? I didn't see any differences, but I was.
I'll
just
have to send it to.
scrolling
Well,
through.
I did. I did. I don't think I sent the release to you guys yet, but the release came out earlier today. Look, they throw this thing together so quick. Sexton wasn't on it.
Okay.
On
I think
this
Bundage wasn't on there. Coyle was still on there.
Yeah. I'll have to look, Alex. I don't have it in
Okay.
front of me here, but they did release another one today. But they, don't pay it much mind.
Right. But it sounds like it actually just was not updated at all. Like it was just the first one released again. I'm not 100%
You
sure on
got me curious now. I'll have to pull it up here before we get off here.
All right,
Let
you
me
do
pull
that.
it up.
I saw that and I thought it was a joke. I thought someone was just joking about, oh, they made the depth charts. I don't know, but it didn't feel like there were any differences. But I just kind of scrolled through things quickly. Saloon, fantastic work, guys. Thank you so much. As do you know if the practice squad rules will remain the same this season? Number of players, the 3 protected players. Cheers from Brazil. I believe so. It will be a 16-man practice squad this year. I was looking at that last night. They are going to give the same number of guys, so from 12 to 16, the way it was last year. I don't know for sure about the other rules. I believe they're going to keep all the practice squad rules as last year. Again, like last season, you can have 2 veteran spots on your practice squad. So someone who might not have been eligible 5 years ago now has an opportunity to be a part of that practice squad team. So yeah, 16 guys on the practice squad this season.
I believe that's correct. Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. Any other last style bender asking about Trey Edmonds. Talking to Wes there, and Wes is talking about could Samuels and Snell get cut? Samuels, I think is on his way out. Snell a little more fringy than where I was at the start of camp. I still think he makes it, but we'll see the health of Balaj and Snell. I don't think either of those injuries are very serious. But my 4 running backs right now are Harris, McFarland, Balaj, and Benny Snell, plus Derek Watt.
All right, who were you asking about on this depth chart here?
Are there any changes from the first one?
Oh, Lord, you're going to ask me.
I mean, that's. Yeah. I mean, do you see anything noticeable?
I see Lafayette. I see Lafayette Pitts on here as the 4th left cornerback.
Dotson is still left.
Dotson is still first team left guard. I'm trying to see who else might be on here. Marcus Baugh has been added to this thing. Pete Guerrero has been added to this thing. I am not seeing.
Is Bundage on there?
I'm trying to see if I see Bundage
inside
at all.
Linebacker.
I am not seeing Bundage here.
So they added Pete Guerrero, who got signed 2 days ago. Didn't add. You're not seeing any differences in terms of guys shifting. Like Isaiah Buggs is still second team nose tackle ahead of Carlos Davis on the depth chart.
Buggs is still second team ahead of Carlos Davis. Even T.J. Carter's still on this one. Now this was
Carter's still on the team.
T.J. Carter. I'm
Calvin Taylor.
I'm talking Calvin Taylor. Yeah. August 9th is when this was released, which was actually today. I see Pete Guerrero on here, like I said. Any you got a question about anybody else on here? I'm not seeing Bundage.
Brooks, first team nickel corner.
I am seeing Antoine Brooks is first team nickel. Arthur Millette behind him.
Okay. I don't think they made any changes from the first one except for adding a couple of names that got signed, but a couple not on there still. Very weird.
Right. Okay. And I don't see Sexton in the wide receivers. And I don't see Bundage on here.
Very strange. Gabriel, do you think Henry Mondo will play on special teams? He's the only defensive lineman who can run down kick, so if he makes the roster, he will. AJC, was there really a fight today at camp? If it happened in 7-on-7s. I heard some commotion. I was watching O-line, D-line. I typically don't watch a lot of 7-on-7s, so I couldn't give you an answer, but it didn't happen during team. I can tell you that. How is Rico Bussy looking? Better in days without pads on. His best days have come when they were in shells. But he's got some talent at wide receiver. But does he have that special teams value? I think guys like Anthony Johnson and Matthew Sexton, even Tyler Simmons, have more value there, and that might give them the edge over a guy like Rico Bussy. William Smith, when you go to training camp, are you able to live stream for us? Thanks, Alex. I am not. We can't film any competitive sessions at camp, and if I tried to live stream, my phone would probably explode. I get the overheating warning every day when I try to take a photo. So live streaming, unfortunately, not possible. What happened to Roland Rivers? He was a tryout guy who did not make the team. So that's what happened to Roland Rivers. Do I know much about Pete Guerrero? Dave knows more about Pete Guerrero than I do.
Yeah, just a very explosive back. Played for obviously at Monmouth, very small school. I tell you this, I mean, I haven't gone obviously deep into his film, but his highlights are highlights. I'll tell you that that guy can scoot. He ran to 100 and 200 meters. I think as a freshman, and was like. I forget what he won, or I think he some sort. I guess that whatever division college, whatever. I think he was the top in that 100, 200 meters. 200 meters. He has. I think I counted. What did I tell you, Alex? 22 or 23 runs of 20 yards or longer, and that's just pulling him off the box score off of his longest run in the game. So in other words, he might have had runs that did not qualify as his longest run in the game, but could have been over 20 yards. I mean, he broke a lot of long runs. He caught a few balls out of the backfield. Undersized kind of guy on top of it there, though. But, I mean, exciting tape, but, probably, look, he'll be lucky to get a carry or two against the Eagles, and if he does, he better take one to the house. That kind of thing there. So, but I go look at tape on every guy that generally the Steelers sign there. So he might be gone before we even get to know him very well.
Flash some speed today, a 14-yard gain in that live tackling run session. Last question is going to come from Mr. Hammers with 2 Z's. Did Jordan Berry clean out his locker yet with 3 question marks? He has not. Berry's still here, but I get your point. Berry's had a good camp. I don't want to knock his camp at all. I think he's been pretty impressive. But Harvard, I think, has been better overall. Obviously was as perfect as you could be in that Hall of Fame game, that preseason opener. And so as we sit here today, unless Harvin, just implodes the next couple of games, which could happen. I mean, we could have a totally different conversation about this following the Eagles game. But if the season began today, my strong suspicion is Presley Harvin III would be your starting punter.
And I defer to Alex on that.
Punter too. So yeah, there you go. And Gabriel, because it's a special teams question, I'm gonna ask you. Stylebender knows the key to my heart here. Do I think Canada or Kuntz will be the starting long snapper? It will be Cameron. Canada, he's almost treated like Boss, like a veteran, where Kuntz does a lot of snaps to on the side and in field goal drill today. So Canada is going to be your long snapper, Gabriel. All right, that is going to wrap up today's live stream. Again, I know it was very much rushed and abridged, so I apologize for all that, camp. It's just crazy time of year, but I wanted to do this today with you guys. So be sure to like and subscribe for future videos on camp, for analysis and reaction to the Eagles game upcoming, and for our future live streams that I promise will be more organized and fuller than they were today. Dave, thank you so much. I know I dropped this on you last second, so I appreciate you being here, and thanks for talking with us.
Yeah, I just pushed go on the training camp practice recap episode that Alex and I just recorded before we got on this as well too. So make sure you leave this and go straight to wherever you download the podcast at, and you should have the Monday recap podcast, which I think tonight was less than 30 minutes. We kind of got through with that and got on this right away. So peace and love to everybody. Thank you for joining us on this live stream tonight.
Yeah, our special edition of the podcast for the Terrible Podcast is going up here shortly. Last Stylebender, ultimately, thank you for being here. And Lumberzack, it should be my guess right now, Ebron Fryermuth, and Kevin Rader. All right, that's going to wrap things up, guys. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for coming out and hanging out with Dave and I.